to an estimated 2.7 million.
(2 a.m. in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, 18 hours GMT, and 7 p.m. in Bangui, the Central African Republic. Welcome to Globewatch. I'm Charles Obuni at The Anchor. Last year, I interviewed 52 different people as main guests on this program, and I addressed the Central African Republic equation 3 times. 2 of the 5 speakers on the Central African Republic were the President of the Pan-African Parliament and the United Nations Special Representative for Central Africa. Questioned whether their various institutions approved the change of power last March in today's violence-swept Central African Republic, lawmaker Bethel Amadi Naimeka, like diplomat Abu Musa, respectively told me that they work with the people on the ground. I wonder if I ask them the same question today on the same situation, they will give me the same answer considering what is going on in the Central African Republic. So, have you ever imagined a world where you work with people thinking that you are working with the right ones when you are working with the wrong people? My guest today is a seasoned historian, Cameroonian historian, Professor Daniel ABWA. Thanks very much for accepting our invitation today.
Thank you for inviting me.
The entire 4.6 million people in the Central African Republic is affected by the current crisis. 3,500 children have been conscripted as child soldiers. 25% of the population is in need of humanitarian food aid. More than 1 million are displaced. When you listen to such inexhaustive data compiled by the United Nations, you simply conclude with a 100% reason to Frenchman René Dumont, who in 1962 wrote L'Afrique noire est mal partie.
It's true that generally I don't like to say such a thing as historian. I don't have to be so pessimistic to say Afrique noire est mal partie. But in face of this data that you're given, I'm obliged to recognize that somewhere this man was not completely wrong. He was not completely wrong, but I don't think it's atavism that the black man should not do something good. It's not atavism. I think we are mal party mainly because we didn't begin well. Mostly because of the foreigners who still continue to dictate our way of life. We are mal party because we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust the Africans. We Africans don't trust ourselves. We are mal party because we lost the opportunity given to us by Nkrumah, who said the only chance of Africa to survive really is to be united.
This week, the Economic Community of Central African States has been meeting in the Chadian capital, N'Djamena, to outline a master peace plan to roll back what the United Nations has called a dangerous humanitarian disaster in the Central African Republic. And the biggest news of the week is that the summit met and discussed that Michel Djotodia and his entire government should resign, which they did, and the president of the Transitional Council, Alexandre Ferdinand Nguendet, is now in command. I just want you to quickly remind our audience the context of the current turmoil in former Ubangui-Chari.
Yes, former Ubangui-Chari that become the Central African Republic. Let's say what is going on today come like a new not the tentative, but overthrown of Bozize. Bozize, who came to power after he also made a coup d'etat
in 2003.
2003, and installed himself. Even if he decided to call for elections, that gave him a certain legality. But the last one were completely opposed, saying that there was a lot of frauds. And how he came to power, the same way they removed him to power, because people, the alliance, an alliance called Selecta, came from northeast of Central Africa, and step by step came even and chased him out of his country, out of his power, and Jotodia took the power. And the Selecta were mainly with a group of armed people, association of some political parties, and many were the people of Islam faith. And that came to chase out a Christian Protestant who were Bozize. And this Selecta began to cause problem in the country, and Jotodia said he has disbanded them, and so that the legal army could take power to take the situation in arms. But we've seen that this dismissal of Selecta wasn't effective.
Wasn't effective. Some have had the courage to name the Central African Republic, quote-unquote, instability, because Dako, the first president, was ousted in 1965 after the country became independent in 1960, like most former French colonies in either French Equatorial Africa or French West Africa. And Dako was removed in 1965 and replaced by Jean Bedel Bokassa, who established the Central African Empire, and he himself was removed in power in 1979 again by Dako, and in 1981 Andre Kolimba. And successfully elections were organized in the 1990s. There was some relative peace in the country, and then in 2003 Michel Patasse was removed from power by Francois Bozize. And Bozize himself, last March 2013, was removed from power. Now, the person who replaced him has equally been removed. Why is the Central African Republic so fragile to political friction with disastrous human outcomes? Why is the country always at loggerheads?
I think there's no one answer to this question. The situation is very complex, because you can find them three main actors that are playing these tricks to the Central African Republic. The first actors are the Central African elite, political elite themselves, because as you quote the names, you see they are the one coming time and again. And the thing is that if I'm not at the power, the one who is there is not good, so I should remove him to take his place. But we don't see the improvement brought by the newcomer. And see, these people lack some patriotism on Central African Republic, because they took it like something belonging to somebody else, and they have to get it. Everyone wants to get that Central African.
They are passers-by in Central Africa, the way they treat the country.
That's why. That's why there is always this turmoil in this society.
So who is the second person to be
The second person, I can divide it in two, the foreigners. The foreigners, first the African foreigners, that's the neighbors of Central African
Do you point your finger at a particular person or a particular
country?
But
you have the Chadian, you have the Congolese. You know that in order to remove, to make the coup d'etat to Patasse, they come from Congo. In order to make the coup d'etat to, Patasse, they came from northern Chadian. So this country, this neighbor country, didn't protect the Central African, as the rule of OAU was saying that we should keep the borders enriched by the colonization.
And then the other outsider?
The other outsider is naturally the former colonial, post-colonial states, that means France, who time and again is tangled in Central African situation. You remember that at the beginning, after the independence, the DACO was backing by France against Abel Ngumba.
Absolutely.
And when he get to power, he imprisoned Ngumba with the, let's say, the shadow of French state.
And they even installed Badel Bokassa overnight as the emperor.
Okay, and they brought again Daco in the plane to replace Bokassa.
Bokassa, who had earlier said that De Gaulle was his father and
yes, even Giscard, we know
Giscard,
what he said about the diamond and the diamond of Bokassa. So French state is always present in this situation.
Prof, let me inject an idea. What actually is in the Central African Republic that these foreigners are looking in?
But
what
you know that actually the Central African Republic has certain mineral resources,
such as
the diamonds, oil, uranium, even in the cash crops they have something to bring.
Okay.
And these foreigners are interested in those mineral resources.
Why there is a conflict in the Central African Republic between Christians and Muslims on an ethnic agenda? You equally have one in South Sudan. This is a country which was separated from the rest of Sudan based that Christians and Muslims cannot live together. And I believe that in certain political quarters now, the argument is maybe to split the Central African Republic between Christian and Muslims line. Do you think that with the juxtaposition of both conflicts, the secessionist and separationist movement is still marketable in Africa today?
No, but I would like to tell you that as a historian, Islam and Christianism always live in peace in Africa. The Africans are tolerant religiously. I remember in the Ghanaian Empire, when there was introduction of Islam faith, the political actors of the Ghanaians accepted to even send their children to school and to have preceptor as Muslim. So the religious relationship in Africa are not generally intolerant. If you take the history of northern Cameroon, for example, you see there people living in peace, each one worshipping his own religion.
But why is it so frictious in most African countries?
Not most African countries. I don't.
Or today.
I will not say so. You have to see that the Africans don't trust their own country, because we are fighting from things brought outside Africa. All these religions are not African religions. And I can assure you that before the coming of Islam, before the coming of Christianity, we didn't have religious war in Africa, because our way of worshiping our God was in such a situation that two people can sit together by worshiping two different gods without fighting together.
Absolutely.
But today, religious is mixed up with politics, and this mixture brings this type of problem we have in Central Africa today.
Okay, the clash in the former Central African Empire today is between the Seleka Muslim minority ruling class, which came to power, which has given way in the course of the week against Christian majority out of the office. Now I'm talking about the Bozize clan. Seleka in the Shango language, which is the dominant language in Central Africa, simply means an alliance, and Anti-Balaka means opposing forces. Tell me.
Opposite machete.
Machete.
Opposite
swords. Tell me, who gave them the arms they are using to kill each other?
That's a good question, but my question would be different. Who is building these arms? Who fabric the arms? Who is selling the arms? Because no matter where the arms coming from, the important is who is benefiting for the use of arms. And you can see neither Seleka nor Anti-Baraka doesn't fabric the arms.
So where are they coming from and who is benefiting from them?
But the one who fabric the arms, the one who is selling the arms.
Who is that?
Is not Central African citizen.
You apportion the blame to who, Professor Daniel ABWA?
I apportion the blame to those who fabric the arms and sold it to us.
You don't have names?
But there are many. There are many. All these Europeans. Have you have any fabric of arms in Africa? But you see all the budget the African states are putting in place. The army budget is always the more important.
There is a theory, I don't know whether there is historical evidence on that. There is a theory that the weapons which are being used in Central Africa today, like those which were used in Mali, were the spoils of what happened in Libya, that actually to overthrow Muammar Gaddafi, not Libyans were fighting, people were imported to come and chase Gaddafi from power. And when Gaddafi was assassinated, murdered or killed, use the term you want according to your sentiments, that these weapons fell into the hands of those who gave them, and they were unable to control the arms, and so they had to return with the arms. Is there historical evidence on that?
No,
basis?
do you think that when you have given something or you sold it for a certain aim, you're going to take it back? You can't take it back. And arms are not something that can be destroyed easily. Because when you give an arm, it can be used for many years. And to take it back to somebody who have given him some strength to do ill things is not easy to bring it back. And those who gave it, I'm not sure even they wanted to take it back because they don't need it. They have also the arsenal where are filled of those arms. They have to take it out. They have to find place where to send it to be used. We are the depotoir in Africa of this type of policy to send us what they can use again. And you'll see that these arms they are using in Central Africa or in Africa are not able to get against those who are making them.
Okay.
Because they are lower, they were obsolete arms, because they have new ones which are more
advanced.
Okay.
You said Africa is a depository for Western weapons. Some 2,500 African peacekeeping forces commanded by Cameroonian General Martin Tumenta have been deployed for an international mission, call it MISCA, together with 1,600 French troops. We are talking about reconstructing the peace in Central Africa. With the putting in place now of a new transitional government, do you think that with this and the piling of the military in the Central African Republic, one can say that we are heading for a stable country?
That's one thing that I would like to say, because I've read somewhere that before the calling of this meeting in Jamina, some French authority were already saying that they are going to dismiss Jotodia. So the result of what we have today seems to have been thought by the French government.
They have been prepared.
They have been prepared by the French government. Now, is it for the Central African sake, this change? Or because the one they have brought, because even Jotodia, they said was under the umbrella of the French authority. That's why when he came there, the French can send people to protect his power, because he was one of the one they have chosen. But now, the Central African population were not consulted. It's true that they brought in planes all the PM, parliamentarian of
members of parliament,
member of parliament of Central Africa.
Yeah.
Did they have really something to say? Is this situation not imposed once more on Central African citizens? Is it going to give the result will bring the peace? Because all what we've seen there, all the foreigners, even the United Nations who sent people there, didn't guarantee the peace. I think the necessity of dialogue between Central African should be the way to pass through. Because when they try to get a conference, you remember, a sovereign conference, we have a period, a certain period of stability.
Let us extrapolate. For the very first time, we saw President Paul Biya taking Cameroonians out of a country. Out of the 31 years he has spent in power, I don't think he has ever taken that decision, no matter how dangerous the situation was in Iraq, Afghanistan, even in Libya, Somalia. We have not seen such a decision. I watched him during the New Year wishes ceremony. Most of the discussion was with the security officials of the country. Now, all of our neighbors are sick. There is mounting militancy in Nigeria. The Central African Republic is a fragile state. Chad, the stability is not all that guaranteed. Go south, Equatorial Guinea doesn't want to see Cameroonians. Terrorism now, nearly on a yearly basis, we spend time liberating foreigners who have been taken as hostages. With this mounting insecurity across our borders, do you think that Cameroon can survive?
Of course, Cameroon have to survive. And you're talking of Cameroon as if you don't know that the Cameroon history is very rich of this type of situation that was overcome by Cameroonians. You know that even at the eve of our independence, we went on secession war. We lasted for more than 10 years. So Cameroonians are now people, I can call them matured people. Mature because they saw what a war is and what are the consequences of this war. I'm afraid only, my fear today is that the new generation of Cameroonians who hadn't seen this type of situation is always manipulated by people wanted to have power to do, or let's say to replace the one in power.
Maybe that is why in his end-of-year message, I hardly talk Cameroonian politics on this program, the president said, but because of the security situation across our borders, we have to mention it. Maybe that is why the president was saying the other day in his end-of-year message that I'm not asking you people for blood. Maybe he was addressing to the new generation, which has not gone...
New generation, which should take into consideration what is passing in our environment. When I see the image in TVs of what is going on in Central Africa, really, I'm afraid. But I'm sure that the Cameroonians who have certain intelligence will have the capacity to mainly take Cameroon as something to save.
How do we guarantee that when most of our borders are porous and you have the entry of such disturbing elements? Because you know, the situation you are talking of the 1960s is quite different today. Today, the president has admitted in several of his speeches that terrorism has no boundaries.
That's true.
How do we secure our borders to prevent what is going on in other countries? Because that is a major issue today.
First, you have to be confident in our country. We have to love our country.
Patriotic.
Yes, we have to be patriotic because what you see elsewhere today is because of this lack of patriotism, or let's say the insufficiency of patriotism. First, we should love our country. And all what we have in our history shows that Cameroonians love their country.
Perfect. Professor Daniel ABWA, before we separate, I want to imagine that you were designed by the international community to provide a masterpiece plan based on your historical experience, teaching, and whatsoever, and studies, to make sure that the Central Africa is no longer a mockery of chaos. What will you provide as Daniel ABWA?
Yes, as Daniel ABWA will tell the Central African people to look at Barthélemy Boganda. They are not talking of this man, who was in fact the one who fought for independence of Central African Republic, who tried to unite, not even in Central Africa, to go beyond Central Africa, to make the Central Africa have the center of Africa. So this man have an idea not to fight for ethnic group, not to fight for individual, but to fight for Africa. And we know how he was, or he died, or he was killed at the eve of the independence. And it's since that time that Central African couldn't have stability, because it lacked a leader who could talk of Central Africa for Central Africa, not for any ethnic group.
Professor Daniel ABWA, historian, thanks very much for accepting.
Thank you. I would like to remind people that you were my student. I like to see that history led to journalism, and journalism led to questioning history teachers.
Professor Daniel ABWA, thanks very much for being guest on our program today. And since we are talking security issues, let me just remind our audience that if you are in Mogadishu, the Somali capital, or you are heading to Mogadishu, just dial the number 888 888 888, and the Somali security forces in Mogadishu will attend to you at any time, because it is one of those areas where we have constant insecurity in Africa. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Charles Ebune in Yaoundé, and see you next week. Bye-bye.